So REHIT was developed by scientists. So it's a really scientifically studied program to develop the shortest, most effective, and most accessible way to exercise.
And I was on the bike for the first time, and then there was another dude. He was, pretty fit, a CrossFitter, I remember he told me. And I remember him getting off the bike and just sitting there for half an hour, trying not to throw up.
But the very sad thing is that less than 5% of Americans meet government guidelines for aerobic exercise.
No brainer. I'd rather spend 40 seconds doing something than 45 minutes, right? To get the same result.
Yeah. You don't get fit during a workout. You always get fit in the recovery periods between workouts.
What happens during those 2 times 20 seconds in terms of what you feel on the bike?
You're listening to the Primal Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kummer, and my goal is to help you achieve optimal health by bridging the gap between ancestral living and the demands of modern society. Get ready to unlock the transformative power of nature as the ultimate biohack, revolutionizing your health and reconnecting you with your primal self.
My goal with the Primal Shift Podcast is to show you how to achieve optimal health, and that includes the health of your body's largest organ, your skin. Today's sponsor, OneSkin, has a line of topical supplements powered by the OS01 peptide. It's the first ingredient scientifically proven to reduce the accumulation of senescent cells. That's one of the hallmark signs of aging. And for a limited time, my listeners will get 15% off their first OneSkin purchase with code MKUMMER at oneskin.co. That's oneskin.co. And now back to the episode. Hey Ulrich, thanks so much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about REHIT, which is not the same as HIIT. It's different, and I want to find out how different is it? What's the benefit of reduced exertion, high intensity interval training? How is it better? And how does a mechanical engineer get into REHIT and fitness? So maybe let's start there.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. Maybe first, how did I get into this? By accident, yeah. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I first started in German automotive industry, very cliche. So I'm German, as you can hear from my accent. And then worked actually in healthcare for the majority of my professional career, working with hospitals and healthcare systems to improve patient care. And to improve patient care, the most powerful and important thing you can do is prevention. And then the most powerful measure in terms of prevention is exercise. But the very sad thing is that less than 5% of Americans meet government guidelines for aerobic exercise. And that's really tragic, given what we know about the benefits of exercise, that so few people can do it. And so we firsthand in working with healthcare systems, so we managed, designed, ran chronic disease management programs for people with chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and so on, and still couldn't get them to exercise. Even if their prescription is exercise, it's still very difficult to get people to exercise. And when you survey why they don't exercise, the number one answer is lack of time.
Yes.
Now, there's a debate whether that's just an excuse or an actual reason. But if you think about how many distractions we have today with endless reels and TikToks and Netflix and so on. So the competition for time is intense, and there's like billion and trillion dollar companies who are really good at competing for people's time. So we actually believe people when they say they have no time. And so our approach is, well, how can we get all the benefits of exercise in the minimum amount of time? And that's basically how we got into that, because we stumbled across REHIT. So that's reduced exertion, high intensity interval training in 2012. And for us, it was like a light bulb moment where we thought, like, my God, that could be something to really shift the needle. Mm-hmm. And literally we went, I went the very next day after I heard about REHIT. It was on a BBC documentary. It was like showcased how effective it was, all the benefits of it with the leading researchers. I went to an equipment shop and bought myself a regular stationary exercise bike. And I actually paid close attention as to what features it should have so that I could perform the REHIT sprints as they were demonstrated on that BBC program. Unfortunately, it was nothing like they had showcased. So I couldn't do it. It was like really hard. It was not easy. I was sweating loads and it just felt very difficult to do. So the enthusiasm dropped off quickly. But my co-founders weren't willing to give up that quickly. And so we reached out to the scientists who were featured on that program. And the very first thing, like literally the very first thing after we've asked, like, why doesn't it work? Was like, well, you need a special bike. And they explained to us that in their labs, they had, it's lab equipment, it's very expensive and is operated by a lab technician that coaches the subject, the person who does the training through the workout. And we tried it and yeah, perfect. And if you do it as prescribed, as designed, it's actually a very good experience. Like, yes, it's intense for a very short amount of time, but it's a great experience. And they had showcased it as an exercise that you could even do in your suit. Yeah. Like at work in your suit. And yeah, if you do it right, that's possible that would be possible for many people.
Because you don't sweat. You don't get to the point where you start sweating, right?
That's true for most people. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. There are some people who sweat loads and then, so we don't give a warranty for that. But for the majority of people, it holds true. But having a second person next to you to operate the bike for you and coach you through it, that's obviously not practical for a mass market application. Because
you need to adjust the resistance, right? On the fly kind of, So you
yes, exactly. Exactly that. And so that triggered us, that spurred us to say, okay, well, we can do better than that. We can develop a fully automated, smart exercise bike that coaches you through the workout, that makes all the adjustments to give you the optimal workout every time. And develop that as a solution that's actually simple to do for like a normal consumer.
Right.
And that's like, we started in 2012. So many prototypes and a lot of hard work went into it. But we think we have now a really good package to do REHIT. Yeah, that's our bike is fully optimized for that. And now we probably have to explain what REHIT actually is. So REHIT is a improved form of HIIT. Yeah, most people, I think everybody here listening, will be familiar with high intensity interval training. And
so HIIT short workouts, very intense, but they don't take very long, right?
That's right. But a typical HIIT program still lasts usually between, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
And the difficulty of it is the rate of perceived exertion is very high. And so it is actually difficult for people to do. And certainly in a traditional HIIT workout, you sweat loads.
Right.
And so scientists...
I think perceived exertion, that's an important aspect, because it's not that REHIT is easy. It is not. Mm-hmm. But it appears to be easier because of the very, very short time duration, like seconds versus minutes, right?
Exactly that. So REHIT was developed by scientists. So it's a really scientifically studied program to develop the shortest, most effective, and most accessible way to exercise. And so a REHIT session consists of only 2 20-second sprints. So you have a very light warm-up, a first 20-second sprint where you go all out, then a recovery, second 20-second sprint where you go all out, and then a cool down. The whole workout can be done in as little as 5 minutes. The longest it takes is 8 minutes, 40 seconds. And so where HIIT offers high intensity training, REHIT offers maximum intensity training, where you really push your body to new limits, but for a very, very short period of time. And that creates a very powerful training stimulus that makes you much fitter and much stronger and gives you the same benefits as a 45-minute run would give you, but in a much compressed time frame.
Right. And so, for someone listening, say, I've 40 seconds of work. How can that possibly do anything? Because it's different. And I could go out and, just run fast for 20 seconds, rest for 2-3 minutes and do it again. And yet you're not going to get the same effects. So what's happening during a REHIT session, both on a physiological level, on a molecular level, really, what happens with what gets released in your body? What is the nervous system? How is the nervous system responding to that stimulus? And why does it work? And why is it so much more difficult than just going like on this, special bike than just doing 20 seconds as fast as you can on an assault bike, which is, one of the modalities that I do a lot as part of my CrossFit training. How is it different?
Sure. So there's a lot of questions there. I'll try to answer them one at a time. So one thing, just I think people need to be clear about is you don't get fit during a workout. You always get fit in the recovery periods between workouts. Yeah. And that's true for any exercise, and it's true here. So the workout just has to provide a stimulus, and then you want to have that stimulus 2 to 3 times per week, and you get fitter and stronger in the recovery periods between the workouts. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Then the second thing about so what happens in those REHIT sprints is that we are effectively simulating a fight or flight situation, an emergency situation where you have to either fight for your life or run for your life. And when you do a REHIT sprint or REHIT workout on Caro Bike, in the sprints, we create a sudden spike in energy demand that's about 100-fold greater compared to rest. So it's very rapid onset of a very, almost extreme spike in energy demand. And your muscles would usually, like the preferred mode of operating would be to burn energy, fat, sugar from the bloodstream. Mm-hmm. With that sudden increase in energy demand, the muscles are unable to take the energy from the bloodstream. Instead, they have to tap into local energy stores. So exactly. So the first 10 seconds is actually, it burns through what's called phosphocreatine. That's like immediate energy, but you have a very, very limited supply of that. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is glycogen. So muscular glycogen is a storage form of sugar. And that's essentially your emergency energy reserve. And you have quite substantial energy reserves stored in your muscle. And now what happens is because you're signaling to your body that it's in a fight or flight situation, the muscle actually mobilizes a lot of glycogen. So it's been shown that you can mobilize with those sprints 25 to 30% of the glycogen stored in your thighs. Now that's an awful lot of energy. And in those 2 20-second sprints, we actually use only very little of it. Mm-hmm. So glycogen is a large molecule of branched polysaccharides, and but instead of mobilizing like just a few of those molecules and burning through them as a whole, we mobilize lots of them and just nibble at the outer branches. And so the body mobilizes loads of glycogen and then uses actually quite little. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's also the reason why 2 20-second sprints are basically enough, and more would not necessarily give you more benefits.
So what happens with the stuff that's not being used?
That gets broken down after the exercise. So you have for the 90 to 120, maybe 150 minutes after the exercise, an elevated metabolism, and you just remove it and break it down in the period after the workout. But during the workout, you use quite little. And now the really important thing and the best understanding of why this works. So we're very clear that it works. Yeah. And the best understanding of why it works is that there are certain molecules bound to the glycogen that get released as the glycogen gets mobilized. So the first is AMPK. That is bound to the glycogen, and then further downstream that releases and triggers the release of PGC1 alpha, which is the master regulator for mitochondrial biogenesis. So therefore, you're creating a very strong signal to your body that it has to get, that it has to build and grow more and larger mitochondria, and therefore increase your ability to burn through oxygen. Yeah? And that increases your VO2 max, and essentially you're getting fitter and stronger. There are other adaptations as well. So your heart gets stronger. It works both on oxygen delivery and oxygen consumption. But the signal is basically triggered just by this rapid onset of energy demand, the glycogen mobilization, and the release of these signaling molecules with the glycogen. And what seems to be the case is that if you have these maximum intensity sprints, that's enough to saturate that signaling response mechanism. So it's a bit like flipping a switch, and actually pressing the switch longer or harder wouldn't really help more. And in fact, so this is slightly crazy because it's counterintuitive, also maybe not fully understood, but what seems to be the case is if you do more or longer sprints, that you don't actually get more benefits, but less benefits. So, and that's really that's against everything else in exercise physiology that we know, because usually if you work out, it's quite clear if you do longer workouts or harder workouts, you get more benefits. That's just how it is. But what seems to be the case there is that if you do more sprints, so 3, 4, 5 sprints, or longer sprints, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, 1 minute, you actually get less benefits. And so the thought, the explanation that scientists have come up with, and this is like a hypothesis, yeah, nobody knows this for sure, yeah, is that basically psychology kicks in if you know that you have to do more and longer sprints, that 2 20-second sprints are just short enough for you to really push to your limits and go all out. Right. If you know that you have to do 6 sprints and they're going to be 40 seconds each, you're not going all out anymore. You hold back. Right. You basically pace yourself.
You couldn't, right? I mean, there is physiologically, it's impossible to have 6 sprints and go all out. I mean, you go all out, but your performance is gonna. I mean, even between my 2 sprints, the second one is significantly below the first one, and there is it's not in my head. I just can't do it any better.
Yeah, exactly. And so the beauty of 2 20-second sprints is that it's they're almost over before the pain kicks in. So I can get and I do
argue the last 10 seconds always suck.
I would argue the last 5 seconds. So I get quite comfortably through the first 15 seconds of a sprint, and then the last 5 seconds get hard. Now I'm very adapted to this. So I've counted I've looked amongst my various accounts and the production and the development environment. I've done like 1,500 of those sprints in my life. So that's a lot. So I'm well adapted and accustomed to it. But clearly, this is intense. Yeah, it's not a free lunch. It is intense, and it feels like a good workout. Yeah, but it's. I would argue it's psychologically quite easy to, maybe not easy, but simple to do, because it's so short, and by the time the pain kicks in, you're actually through it. So, and I do other types of workouts as well. So I, not every weekend, but many weekends, I also do a 5K run while the children have football training. Yeah. And I find a 5K run, if I have to run for 25 minutes, like every step is kind of like, I have to push myself, and it's hard. Yeah. Whereas, for 20 seconds, that's much easier to actually push through than these extended, prolonged, periods. And we see it in our user data that we get good adherence rates, and that it seems to be something that that people can fit into their usual routine.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And just in terms of intensity, I remember, I'm not sure if you do, but when we met was it Paleo FX? I think many.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And I was on the bike for the first time, and then there was another dude. He was, pretty fit, a CrossFitter, I remember he told me. And I remember him getting off the bike and just sitting there for half an hour, trying not to throw up.
Yeah. And so that's right. But that's why we, one thing that we, so as when you first start using the bike, we usually have what we call ramp up rides. So you start with just 2 10-second sprints, so that you actually know what it feels like, what happens, how your body reacts. And then you do 2 15-second sprints, then you do 2 20-second sprints if you want, or you stay at the 15 seconds or the 10 seconds layer, and which also deliver a benefit, are substantially easier until you work up your way to that you can actually kind of tolerate it and perform it frequently. Because like really in terms of, for all exercise, adherence is almost like the only thing that matters. Yeah. So that is really our primary focus. I know like effectiveness, efficiency is super important, but really what we care most about is adherence. And we feel that kind of REHIT on a Caro bike is actually something that is strongly habit forming, and that helps you build a routine, and that helps our users to have something they can stick to, and also to have something you can fall back on if you're like going through a very busy period or so.
Yeah.
To have something that you can always do, that you can always fit in.
Yeah. No, I agree. So if I have an assault bike, right, and if I wanted to do those 2 times, 20 seconds, there are a lot of people who say, well, that's exactly what I can do. I don't need a special bike for that.
Yeah.
Maybe let's walk through what happens during those 2 times 20 seconds in terms of what you feel on the bike.
Yeah, sure.
Because I remember, well, every time I go on the bike, the first couple of seconds, is literally, you pedal as fast as your muscles can twitch, right? There is no resistance, or very little at least, not life. For me, it's like, it's just enough so you don't, if you've tried already, like on a regular, road bike, going downhill on first gear, you can't pedal. It doesn't work because there is not enough resistance. But with Caro, there is just enough resistance to make you go as fast as you possibly can, right? And then it increases, right? Slightly.
That's right. So the reason, and like going back to the beginning of our conversation, kind of why do you need a special bike? So REHIT works because you momentarily push to your limits and you really get to your maximum intensity. Now, to get to maximum intensity and to reach your limit, you need to do like basically 3 things. You need to apply the optimal resistance. You need to apply it at the optimal time, at the right time, and that is just after you've built up a lot of speed and reached basically your maximum cadence. So you start pedaling at a very low resistance, very, very fast, And then your optimal resistance has to kick in rapidly in a fraction of a second, go basically instantly from very low to very high. And then it's also really helpful to basically get coached through that, because if you just tried it on a regular bike like I did, even though I had seen on the BBC documentary there how they did it in a lab, I couldn't replicate it. And I was going way too hard in the recovery periods. The sprints were not good and I didn't get to maximum. So, and that's what the bike does. So the bike doesn't have any buttons. It's fully kind of computer controlled with automatic resistance. You through the screen and the voice coaching, you're coached through the workout. And so we try to make it, and I think we've got there really to make it as simple as possible to perform this REHIT workout and make it as easy as possible. And what our bike also does is because we have a lot of data. We have by far the largest REHIT database in the world. I mean, orders of magnitude higher than our academic partners, for example, because the studies they do is limited in participants and how much duration. And we have tens of thousands of users now over years. So we have way larger data set. So based on that, we can when you start, calculate what we believe your optimal resistance to be. And then, and that's based on, your biometric data, your demographic data. And then as you do the workouts, we can fine tune it based on your performance, and we will find your optimal resistance level very quickly and then keep adjusting it, as you get fitter and stronger, or also reducing it if you had to take a break off training or you had an injury or so.
Right.
And that makes the workout suitable for, I'd like to say any age and fitness level. So we have from my 15-year-old sons do it, and my 81-year-old mother does it. And she's one of our very, she's 81. She does it every other day. She texts me that her high scores. And that's is quite remarkable, because she does have mobility issues and finds, for example, walking more challenging. Right. But on the bike, she can still do like a really effective workout to keep her cardio as good as possible. Yeah. Right. So it's a very personalized workout that's just easy to perform. And when you do it on the air bike, so the Assault air bike, for sure it's an interesting alternative. And if you have access to an air bike, you can try to do REHIT on an air bike, because the workload on an air bike also increases quite rapidly as you pedal faster. Right. And you can get to very substantial power output also on the air bike. The drawback with an air bike is that it's essentially a bike with one gear. Yeah. Right. So you have one defined relationship between pedal speed, cadence, and power output. Mm-hmm. And so if you're, a CrossFit athlete like you, in your 30s or early 40s, I don't know. Okay, then the air bike might actually be a really good match. However, for my mother at 81, the air bike would for sure not be a perfect match, because it would be much too hard for her. So the Carol bike has 255 gears, and we personalize and optimize the resistance continuously. And so we can tailor it much more to individual users, which an air bike couldn't do. And then there's other things that with an air bike, the resistance increases as you pedal faster. We can really let you accelerate first and then kick it in. So I'm sure we eke out a little bit more in terms of power and really getting your legs to work at maximum. Mm-hmm. But yes, on the other hand, air bike is for sure lower cost, but then it's also a bit noisy. It doesn't give you all the data, the dashboards, and so on, the tracking. We try to build something that's really optimal for REHIT, and I think we managed that quite well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there is, the other thing really is you cannot possibly outgrow that bike. I've noticed from back in, I don't know when it was, 2018, 2019 or whatever, when you went first.
Yeah.
And, my scores back then, I think I just crossed 1,000 watts or so. There was like 1,081 or so, I think I had. And now my best score that I've never reached again, by the way, but also probably because I haven't done it as often as I did a while ago. 1,700 and something. I don't know how I did it. Honestly.
That's outlandish. Yeah, that's a very, very high score. So that's not many of our users achieve that.
During a 10-second sprint.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Very impressive.
Motivated, and I don't know. Everything must have come together. But usually, But anyway, even now when I go on in a HIIT like the 1,400-1,500 or so, it's as challenging as it was the first time I did it. It never gets so like, now I've got it. No, you never got it. You always get off that bike and you're like, holy moly, I'm done. And because you said before glycogen, I wear a continuous glucose monitors, on and off. You can see a clear spike like during CrossFit workouts where your body dumps glycogen. I mean, there is. You can see it. If you want to measure it yourself, if you don't believe the science, it's there. You can obviously tell, the other day what I did was a big mistake. I jumped on the bike and then right after into a sauna because I had to do a sauna test.
Okay.
And see how different types of saunas impact my cardiovascular system. And and usually I stay in for half an hour, the highest heat possible. At minute 15 in the sauna, because I got into the sauna, my heart rate was still 105. My resting heart rate is somewhere between high 40s to low 50s.
Okay.
And that was 20 minutes after the bike, So I got in and my heart rate was still elevated. And at 15 minutes, I had to get out of the sauna because I was at 147. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm not recovering. I can't do it anymore. That's how much of a prolonged impact the bike had on my cardiovascular system. And I consider myself to be relatively fit.
I'm sure you are.
You get that afterburn effect that you alluded to before, where you continue burning calories even after getting off the bike. So it's not just the 8 minutes or 40 seconds, of actual work. It's for significantly longer, where you keep burning calories, your metabolism remains ramped up, and you get benefits.
Exactly that. So we've done a study on that, and we know that about two-thirds of the total calorie burn from those workouts happen in the 90 minutes after the workouts. Right. So during the workout, you do burn some calories, a modest amount, but then with the afterburn, it actually becomes meaningful. So when I do a workout, I do this pretty much also every other day. That's just habit. It's easiest for me. I don't have to think about it. So then I have a calorie burn in total of something like 210, 220 calories. And that's meaningful for my body size and weight in terms of just helping with keeping my metabolism up and just being active and managing weight, all of those things. So it's a meaningful calorie burn with that afterburn.
Yeah, and to put this in context, that's based on 40 seconds of actual work. I mean, this is because, and if you go for a 45-minute walk or a jog or whatever, and see how little calories you actually burn and how well that matches up with what you burn during 40 seconds, even if weight loss is your main thing, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. I'd rather spend 40 seconds doing something than 45 minutes, right? To get the same result.
Yeah. I mean, we would always, so in terms of benefits, the key benefits are really is one, cardiovascular fitness, improving your VO2 max, and with it, longevity benefits and so on. The other is metabolic health and lowering your risk of getting something like type 2 diabetes and so on. Those are our headline, the primary benefits. For weight management, the number one by some distance is what you eat. Yeah, for sure. Right. Diet makes most difference there. But certainly it adds to your calorie consumption, your calorie burn. And the other thing where it's very helpful and can make weight management easier is around insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
So what does happen is as you release lots of glycogen, the body actually wants to replenish that quickly afterwards, because it is the emergency energy reserve, and the body wants to be ready for whatever happens next.
Right.
So first, you have lots of capacity to store sugars also away again. So that's great for managing your blood sugar levels. And the process is regulated by insulin. And so having, and therefore improves your insulin sensitivity. And if you're insulin resistant, then just weight management becomes quite harder, because you can't. So even if you carry lots of energy stored in fat and your adipose tissue with you, if you're insulin resistant, you just have a much harder time to access that.
Right.
And if you have a good insulin response, it's just easier to access your, like, the energy that you have,
right,
that you carry around with you.
Yeah. No, and when insulin sensitivity, I think, is one of the key factors in any metabolic disease. I mean, even cognitive issues like Alzheimer's and dementia, they're all glucose issues in the brain, basically, or lack of insulin sensitivity, meaning insulin resistance, where cells don't accept the glucose anymore, because they're either, they don't respond to the signals of the hormone insulin. And so improving insulin sensitivity, I think, is one of the key things that I'm concerned about for my own, health and longevity. Yeah. And it's also one of the reasons why I like Carol so much, because I can see my blood sugar response. And every time I get off, I know that I'm a little bit more sensitive to insulin because of what I just did, because of 40 seconds of work I put in,
Yeah.
Now, one thing, you mentioned it before as well, Carol is designed to put you into fight or flight mode. It causes a dramatic stress response, right? And I kind of compare it, even if though it's not the same, to cold plunging, right? It's you jump into cold water, right? And you get an immediately fight or you're in shock mode, and your brain is like, you're gonna die. We need to do something about it. Right?
So I mean, it's totally right. And in fact, some of the mechanism why you see benefits from cold plunging are actually there are similarities. As I understand, some of the benefits from cold plunging also comes from the release of PGC1 alpha,
right,
which is this master regulator for mitochondrial biogenesis.
Right.
And so there's while kind of the initial stimulus is quite different, the kind of the downstream adaptation pathway is quite similar, actually.
Right. Yeah. No. And the second reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people see things, black or white, meaning that there are those who say, okay, you have to push yourself every day to the red line, otherwise you're not going to improve. And then there are those who never want to push themselves, period, and always go the convenient route. I've learned, even though I've for most of my life, I lean towards the, if you don't throw up, you're not doing it right, kind of, I was in that camp for a long time. But now I'm old enough that I've realized that in our modern lives, with all of the stressors we are exposed to, even the good stressors can make your glass, spill if your stress levels are already maxed out. So, and I think that might also be a reason. I'm not sure if that was the case or not, but from the get-go, you told me, 3 times a week, Carol, is enough. More doesn't necessarily lead to more benefits. And I've come to realize, even with my workout routine, pushing it every single day, considering in the stressful environment that I live in, is not conducive to optimal health, because it's too much stress. Even if it's good, even I used to do sauna bathing, cold plunging, Carol, every single day, then CrossFit. Sometimes I did Carol, and then I went to CrossFit, and and I realized, okay, that's too much stress, and I think that even with Carol as well, I think you're probably better off if you do it on a day where your stress levels are lower than if you're already maxed out and you come home after a day of work and you're like, I can't deal with it anymore, but I have to do Carol now and stress myself even more. That might be counterproductive. What's your take on that?
Yeah, sure. So first, in terms of, I think it's good to be aware and know what is actually like, how much do you have to do, and then keep that in mind. And depending on what your goals are for cardiorespiratory fitness, it seems that actually 2 times per week might be sufficient. Okay. For metabolic health, 3 times per week is for sure better than 2 times per week. But no, you don't have to do it every day, because you need to give your body time to recover. Right. And in that periods, then you can grow back and grow fitter and stronger. So certainly, on the other hand, it's so short, like the reduced exertion, that when I've discussed this with the scientists, and they are the leading scientists in the field, they've also said like they probably don't see a massive downside if you wanted to do it every day, but you don't have to. And giving your body time to recover is for sure a good strategy and a good choice. So I do it 3 times a week, and that's what we recommend to our customers.
Right.
There are, of course, so just to be clear, there's many other things you can do with the bike. It's optimized for REHIT,
right,
but it's also a very versatile bike that allows you to do longer fat burning sessions, or zone-based training, zone 2 sessions, and so on. So if you have a lot more time, then, for example, doing some longer low-intensity workouts like zone 2 training, that's for sure a valuable addition. But it's you work then at a different intensity, and it's obviously also much longer. So this is really, if you have the time, then that's a useful addition into the mix of what you do in terms of exercise.
Right.
And then there's obviously there's strength training is super important. I spend probably a lot more time on strength training than I do on cardio, even though I have a company that does cardio equipment. But that's just how it goes. And kind of mobility work. So there's a mix of things, and it has to be balanced.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever tried, because I did this for a while, and I've not found anyone who has done this as well to, kind of gauge if what I'm doing makes even sense. But I have this machine where I can control how much oxygen I inhale. So I can switch between 10% oxygen and 90%, kind of simulating like, being up on base camp of Mount Everest versus being then, hyper oxygenated.
Yeah.
And what I've done is I've done the sprints. Well, actually, I did various protocols, but I tried doing the whole thing, whole 8 minute, 40-second protocol just on 10% oxygen.
Yeah. How did that feel?
Awful. You're breathing like through a straw, and but it has really it had a dramatic impact on my hematocrit and oxygen carrying capacity.
Wow. Okay.
Now, obviously, you don't want to do this so long. You don't want your blood to get too thick, otherwise you might pass out or have other issues. But I wonder, has anyone ever tried this, especially in a clinical setting or in a scientific setting, to see if that positively or negatively impacts the benefits you get from the bike?
Yeah. So I can't speak too much about it. I know that we have commercial customers, so gyms and quite advanced biohacking studios who routinely combine the Caro bike with the I think they use the Live O2 or so, or Live O2, I'm not even sure, for some of the longer workouts, for the fat burn workouts that they with elevated oxygen levels do, like some of them. So the in the LA area, Smart Fit method, I think a very good outfit. They have a bunch of different locations there. They use it routinely with I think elevated oxygen levels. So yeah, that does exist, but it's not something that we routinely recommend or sell. So there you're at the bleeding edge of biohacking.
Of stupidness.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that's fair enough. If you this is kind of the N=1 studies to see whether it works for you, but that is really the bleeding edge, and I've not come across a scientific citation that would exactly match those two methods.
All right. Okay, cool. Well, I think that we went through, covered a lot of ground. I really like how you explain certain things and how it's different and why it works. I really think it's a no-brainer. I mean, we've had the bike, I mean, is second generation now, but starting out with the first gen, again, 2019 or so. And it does work. It's brutal if you want to. I mean, maybe one more thing, when you are doing those 20 seconds, if you don't go all in, you don't see the benefits, right? So it's not, oh, I'm going to just go half-ass. If you do that, it's not going to work, correct?
That's right. So we clearly encourage people to push and go all out. One thing I would say, if 20 seconds are just too long, it's okay to do 15-second sprints. Or we have like an option where you do 3 15-second sprints instead of 2 20-second sprints. And that from this is direct user feedback, and also in terms of large data, it seems that the stress that we induce is similar, so same peak heart rate, but the affective response, so how users feel afterwards, seems to be better. So one can, there's so 3 15 seconds is, I think, a valid alternative. And the last 5 seconds do kind of, if those are the ones that hurt you most, then why don't you cut those out and do 3 sprints? It's a little bit longer in overall, but that's quite promising. And yeah, otherwise, even 2 15-second sprints have benefits very clearly, and then use that to build up your fitness until you're there. And it's kind of, yes, push to your limits, but making it a little bit shorter can make a huge difference, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a great talk. Where can people find you and your bike?
Yeah, sure. So on all socials, we're at the Carol Bike. Our website and our web store is carolbike.com. You can purchase a bike there. Now we don't operate showrooms. We are in some of the kind of more biohacking studios and personal training facilities in the more advanced ones, but generally we don't have showrooms. But what I would point out, if you do get a bike, if you purchase a bike, first you get free delivery, and we offer a 100-day risk-free trial. That's really industry leading. Nobody else offers that. So you can use the bike for up to 100 days. And that's easily enough time to see whether you like it, whether you can stick to it, and whether you see the benefits. So that's very clearly enough time to make up your mind. And if it's not for you, we also pick it back up and you get a refund. So that's something we operate because we don't have showrooms. So yeah, carolbike.com. That's the place to go.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks, Ulrich. I appreciate it.
Good. Thank you so much.